All right, here we go. This is Measure of an Episode.
That long pause, I was really thinking you had something good.
Where our continuing mission is to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek and not solo character moments. Anyway, hi, this is Measure of an Episode, where, as you know, where our continuing mission is to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek and not just solo character moments and
and just rip-offs of Voyager episodes.
Yes. I'm Jonathan, and Paul's going to share with us what the 3 criteria are.
The criteria by which we judge these episodes. Number 1, does it have science fiction in it? Is there science fiction? Is there an expression of science fiction woven, as Jonathan would say, like a tapestry through the episode?
Yeah, that was all me.
Number 2, is there an expression of morality woven through the episode?
Like a tapestry.
Like a tapestry. And those are the 3 criteria.
So this week we watched Doctor's Orders, which is episode 16 of season 3 of Enterprise. And I don't have the blurb pulled up.
While in command of the Enterprise, because the entire let me start over on that one. While in command of the Enterprise. At least I have it. At least I have it in front of me. At least I can read it. And now I can't read it. At least I can't read it. While in command of the Enterprise, because the entire crew is in a coma, which is like the worst sentence ever. I feel like it should be, while the entire crew is in a coma, Dr. Phlox is in command and starts hearing some strange sounds. It's like they have too many, whatever they're called, dangling modifier. No, that's probably not what it is, but you know what I mean.
Yes, so it should say due to instead of because. I feel like that would make it flow a lot better.
Well, they should have started with the entire crew is in a coma, period.
I just leave it at that.
That's it.
Oh, that would be so great. Like, I feel like they should put these blurbs as all things that like are way more intriguing, like that.
Yeah, but they just, I mean, in this particular case, it does seem to encapsulate the whole episode.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But it's not very interesting. It doesn't make me want to watch the episode.
Right. But if it said the entire crew is in a coma, I would be like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is that?
Right. And the episode would start with it looking like the entire crew is in a coma. There's nobody on the bridge. There's nobody in the mess hall. There's nobody in the hallways.
Yeah. Which is cool. It's like an Alien homage.
Yeah.
You know, I guess, and Aliens, but Aliens was an homage to Alien. But yeah, this is how Alien starts. And so I don't know if they meant to do that. They must have.
There were lots of homages going on in this episode.
Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. So here's the thing. I love Dr. Phlox. I could watch a whole movie of just him walking around talking to himself. I think it's great. I don't know why I like him. Just watching him be weird.
Yeah.
And watching him you hate his diction. I like the diction.
Yeah.
I don't like that we are not thrust into the action. We're sort of just slowly drifting into it without a paddle. We're just kind of like, well, maybe we'll encounter some plot at a certain point.
Right. No, yeah, there was definitely like, I mean, it was a character episode. There really wasn't a whole lot. There was a plot given so the character could do something, but without any guest stars and with it being just about him, like this was a textbook bottle episode.
Yes. And it was, I don't feel like they hit the mark as they should have. I felt like there were some, not sloppy, but just poorly executed turns in the show.
Yeah.
First of all, I feel like Phlox would have definitely eaten Porthos at a certain point, right?
Well, sure, naturally. Like,
yeah. I mean, especially as he starts to descend into madness, I feel like there would be a point where he's eating, because he eats everything else on the show.
What?
He's like known for eating weird. He eats weird stuff. He breeds weird leeches and stuff. He even feeds them to Porthos at a certain point, which I think he's just fattening him up. You know?
Right, but he doesn't randomly start gorging on things. It's not like Phlox. Phlox, that's a communicator. Please stop.
Oh God, if they did that, it'd be so good.
Like he's
a genius. He's a genius physician, but he has this problem where he just can't stop eating it.
You're eating my hand as we speak. I am not.
Out. Yeah, everybody has to carry around like water squirt bottles to stop him from eating stuff. No, it's not like he would just dive on top of Porthos and start eating him, but he would have killed him and frozen him or tanned him to eat at a certain point.
Well, he almost did.
Well, that was in protection, not to eat. Maybe he would have eaten him later. It's like, well, I can't let him go to waste.
Well, yeah, I absolutely. I feel like if Porthos had died, plus it was 4 days. Like this, obviously it was a descent into madness over the course of 4 days, but it was 4 days.
That's the thing about this episode. I feel like it should have been over the course of 6 months, which is what the Voyager episode did. It was over the course of a very extended amount of time.
Right.
With 7 of 9. And it just felt like you can't hang on to yourself for 4 days. This is what happens after 4 days of isolation. I mean, if only I had 4 days of isolation, right? That would be great.
Haven't? In like these last 8 months?
No, literally by myself, where I have no one to talk to. Where I have truly an entire ship to myself.
Yeah. You'd have to be on a ship, like on a boat, by yourself in the ocean for 4 days.
Right. That would be miserable for me, though. It would have to be this specific thing where I'm on a spaceship. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
With fake gravity?
I feel like 4 days. I like being alone sometimes. I don't need interaction with people once a day or something like that. Like I am sort of a loner in that sense, and I kind of need a cave to go into every once in a while. And so this kind of scenario is kind of attractive to me. Obviously not with the craziness aspect, but it just seems like, oh, this is cool. I get a break from everything. I can do whatever I want. And he does. He walks around naked, which I thought was a nice touch.
Well, yeah, and he's not in a situation. I mean, it's kind of weird for a physician to be doing that, but it goes back to he's not for lack of wanting, So it doesn't go back to, but to repeat your point, he's got everything that he could want. So if you were in isolation, the way that I was just describing, you'd be on a boat all by yourself, but you'd still be struggling for food or that kind of thing. But if you were somehow on a cruise ship all by yourself, where the kitchen was open to you, the movies were open to you, the pool was open to you, 4 days is not enough time.
Right. No, I agree. I think 2 weeks would be enough. Well, so whenever I'm kind of attracted to the genre of the kind of last man on Earth scenario where, I don't know what you post-apocalyptic, not necessarily post-apocalyptic, but just everybody's dead except you, and you can have your run of the town. That sounds really fun to me. Obviously, I would get tired of it, but the idea of I'm going to go to the movies right now and start a movie and just watch it, right? The movie theater and just watch it. I'm going to go and just do whatever I want. And it's just, I don't know, there's something attractive about that. I don't know why. For example, the pilot of The Last Man on Earth is so much fun for me to watch. It's very, I guess, vicarious. Is that, can I make that a noun?
The essence of vicarity? Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any of this? Am I by myself on this?
No, I completely agree. I think, but it's one of those things where it's a no-win situation. I don't know how I would be with The Last Man on Earth after X amount of time, but having 4 days, knowing when it would cut off. If I'm all by myself and there's nobody in this city for 4 days for whatever reason, I have access to all the fast food, all the grocery stores, all the movie theaters, all the museums, the playgrounds, the pools, everything. I would probably stay home. Having access to all of it just makes me feel comfortable. If I was stuck at home and everything was shut down and I wasn't allowed to go, I would be dying to go to the movies or go to the playgrounds or the museums or parks or whatever.
Right.
But it's one of those things where the fact that the option is there, I would probably just enjoy the silence and solitude in my house. Yeah,
that kind of goes along with the anticipation of something almost being better than the actual thing itself. For example, I always like the ritual of going to dinner and then going to the movies, right? Especially if it's a movie that I've been waiting to see. And usually by the time the movie is ended, I wasn't like, oh, that was great. It was a nice experience, but I actually look forward to it. I enjoy looking forward to the event probably just as much, maybe even a little bit more than the actual event itself.
Yeah, I would say the movie has to be pretty good to really enjoy that whole experience, because if you're disappointed halfway through the movie, you're just kind of at that point suffering through it so you can get back home.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I even if it's a perfect experience. There's something about, because you look forward to it for days, weeks, months.
Yeah.
And that's more of that's an extended, pleasant experience rather than just a couple of hours that you're actually doing the thing.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mean, right. So we're talking about an episode that has nothing to do with anybody except Dr. Block. And
so I have to ask. Okay. So when T'Pol shows up, were you immediately like, well, she's definitely not real, right?
Well, yes, he'd already walked around naked. Like if she had been part of the crew originally, then he wouldn't be walking around naked. There would be a chance that she would run into him or vice versa, and so he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. I didn't even think about that. Damn it.
There's also a moment later on where he is this is just from the continuity notes, where she mentions his hallucinations to the conversation he had with Hoshi. Was that who it was?
I think it's Oshi, isn't it? Oshi?
Or Hoshi?
You're asking me what the character's name is?
Like, was that the person that he had talked to? You know,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he no one else was part of that conversation. And so unless he went on and shared it with others, that was another clue that she was part of his brain only.
I don't know. I felt like if they had handled the reveal of T'Pol being conscious, it would have been, they could have just done it. And I don't know what that way is off the top of my head, but there's got to be a better way than the way they did, where she just shows up. There's got to be some way where you can make that less jarring, where it doesn't set off alarms in my movie brain, where it just felt like, oh, this is weird, something is awkward. Unless that wasn't the intention, where I'm supposed to be wondering. But I felt like the reveal at the end of the episode is I'm supposed to think that she was awake the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's interesting because like you said, you can't think of another way, and I can't think of one either, because I thought that the way that they handled it was pretty fine. Like, he just says in conversation, you know, you could have said something, and she was like, I was running diagnostics, you know, I was distracted by everything else, and she hadn't been seen previously about how everyone would have to be comatose. So I thought that, you know, I don't know of a better way it could have been done, and I thought that the way that they handled it was pretty good.
The whole scenario, though, can we talk about that for a second? So the scenario of, we want to get around this area of space, and where we don't want to take the 2 weeks to go around it. It's going to take us 4 days to get through it. But so that in and of itself right there is like not worth the risk. It's how many, 10 days of extra time. And they say, like, okay, so if you're awake and we go through this space, you're going to die, and you're a human. You're going to be dead.
Right. And
so something might go wrong, as things often do on this ship. Things often go wrong with the ship. So he has a conversation with Skip, and Skip says, look, you need to wake me up. I'm making this easy for you. If something goes wrong, wake me up, I'll fix it. I'm going to die, but everybody else will be safe. Why are we taking the risk here? It's not like we're going to say, well, we want to go through this very important part of space. It'll take us 3.5 years to get to, or 6 months. That to me seems like better stakes than saving 10 days.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I just, this whole scenario doesn't seem like, why are you risking this? It doesn't seem worth it.
Right. Well, and like that's basically Chekhov's gun, you know, of saying, if anything goes wrong, you need to wake me up. And it would have been neat if he, like, it did just really start to fall apart, and he did wake up Trip, and like he woke him up, but then kind of like what happened with T'Pol, where she was, you know, freaking out and she wasn't able to help him, and the reason why she couldn't help him was because she wasn't there. Kind of the same thing. Like, Trip immediately starts having negative reactions to the drive, you know, to the space field that they're in. And so he can't help. And so ultimately, you know, Phlox, quote unquote, woke him up for no reason. And so then, you know, Phlox has to continue dealing with the ship. Like, it would have been cool if it was a little bit more like the Crusher episode, where his hallucination was more about his own failures and anxieties, and the ship was essentially falling apart around him, and he was struggling to keep it afloat, as it were. And it turned out to be almost entirely in his head. That's a great idea. That's how they should have done it. I mean, I mean, comedically, he should have been waking people up just with every small sound. You know? Right. But no, I love your idea. I love the idea that in his mind he has sacrificed, you know, up to the captain. Right.
he doesn't know what to do, that he is so insecure with his ability to cope with a dangerous scenario that he is willing to kill his own captain.
Yeah.
To get through this ordeal. And then he wakes up. That's so much better.
Yeah.
I liked how they handled T'Pol. I felt like once, even though I knew what was happening, the idea that, well, she never touches anything. She can't read anything. She only knows what Phlox knows. Mm-hmm. She has no more information. So they handled that really well. Once they got into it, I felt like it was good. I felt like I was disappointed that I couldn't watch this and not have the reveal at the end. Right. I wanted to have the ignorance until I was not supposed to anymore.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple moments near the end where I was actually beginning to think, I was like, oh, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe she was awake the whole time.
Yeah. And they held it as long as they could because they wanted you to, maybe they felt like, well, there's going to be people who call it, right? Mm-hmm. Just by accident. Mm-hmm. So maybe they wanted to extend it out as long as they possibly could to make you think that. And I had the same thought. I was like, oh, maybe she is real. Maybe this is just a Phlox T'Pol episode.
Right.
But yeah. But it started to make, I don't know, they had little cues and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
The fact that Trip didn't acknowledge her at all when he walked by.
Oh yeah. I didn't notice that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, and then just that moment at the end where he says it wasn't as lonely as I expected it to be or something. And she gives a look of like, what do you mean? But like if somebody said that, I'd be like, oh, that's good.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know exactly what you mean, but I could do some math in my head as to what, it might mean. Like there were some personal things that you went through, or you had Porthos, or you watched some movies.
Right. I would not be confused by that statement to the point where it would reflect upon my face. I would be conversationally pleasant.
You're not going to immediately run to your quarters, get into the shower naked, and start, hugging yourself.
Right. Well, especially if...
What did he mean? What did he mean?
Especially if I'm an emotionless Vulcan. Like...
Wait a minute. Can we talk about Vulcans for a second?
Sure.
I had this thing. This has nothing to do with this episode.
Okay.
And may or may not even end up in the final thing.
I feel like if we don't talk about things not related to this episode, this will be a 15-minute podcast episode.
I agree. So Vulcans, it always feels like when any Vulcan, not just T'Pol, but T'Pol is a good little microcosm of this. Mm-hmm. Whenever any other race who is not a Vulcan talks to a Vulcan, there's always this sense of them being, at best, annoyed by the other races. There's always a sense of they're being put out, that there's a grand sense of superiority over any other race. And so I get that. I understand that is the Vulcan thing. That's what Vulcans do. Even Tuvok was that way. I think Spock, in some ways, felt that he was superior to humans. And so my question is, why do Vulcans then continue to interact with other races? What is the point? They've achieved warp and they have achieved technological advancement by themselves. So why do they bother? They seem to just be totally put out at all times as to talking with these other races. So why don't they go back to Vulcan? I guess they can't anymore. Why don't they go to another planet? And I don't feel sorry for them. Vulcans are dicks.
The kind of outside canon is Gene Roddenberry did not want to introduce Vulcans in the first season of Next Generation. And when he either stepped back or passed away or something, they wanted a familiar alien race to provide conflict. And so they reintroduced Vulcans, and Vulcans just kind of turned into the point of conflict, and in so doing they became character conflict, which was to be adversarial and condescending, just overall D-bags.
I mean, I could see why they feel superior to humans. There's sort of but it's not. It doesn't seem to be contained to humans.
Right.
Like, are they just racist?
I mean, they kind of could be, like, because they believe that they have overcome their emotions. They've perfected that. So anyone who expresses emotions clearly does not have the same level of control that they do. And I mean, like you said, specifically to humans, we're a backwoods race, basically. We're Neanderthalic in nature because we haven't advanced to the same level that they have.
Now, did you say backwoods sort of saying backwards in a East Coast accent? Backwoods? Or did you say backwoods, as in
I said backwoods, like rednecks. Yeah.
Now I can't not hear you say that and be like backwoods, where you park the car.
I think you've been out in Jersey too many times.
I know it's a thing. I guess another explanation that I can just make up is that, yes, they hate everybody, but they realize that they gain just as much as they give in terms of being part of the Federation.
Yeah.
I suppose. They realize the symbiosis that's happening, and so they endure these terrible other races.
Well, yeah, I think like once they've developed the Federation, there was definitely a little bit more of an understanding. Like even if they gained 1/10 from the 10 other races that are there, compared to the 100% that they're giving, it's still an equal balance. If there's 10 races, if it's anything more than 10% from each race, they're now gaining more than they're giving.
Well, they probably would look at it with that kind of mathematical outlook too.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be. Why hasn't there been an episode in any of the shows about a Vulcan who has taken it upon themselves to genetically extract emotion? So whatever is in our genes that makes us emotional, they extract and is no longer there.
I would guess because the whole point of controlling your emotions is exactly that. It's to have the power to control your emotions. If you have them removed, then you're not showing any willpower over them, and that doesn't show internal strength. That's a
very practical, sane approach as to why Vulcans do what they do. I'm talking about like take the extreme character, a villain of a movie or show, and say this person wants to achieve this highest level of emotionlessness, and that is literally extracting the emotion from their body. And I could see that being a very interesting villain of some kind,
yeah.
where you take a crazy Vulcan, crazy Vulcans,
which wouldn't work in and of itself, but obviously this is somebody who's struggled with controlling their emotions.
Yeah, exactly, and that would be the backstory. And so they extract this thing, and it makes them weird. It makes them. Do you watch Fargo?
No.
So in Fargo, one of the greatest things about the show. Not the movie, but the movie too, but more so the show, is they have these super eccentric, interesting characters that are on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as though you watch the show not so much for the overarching plot, but for just to watch these characters interact in the world. And so it would be like that, where you just have this amazing, really well thought out, okay, what would happen if you just removed emotion? Because emotion has, it has meaning, it has use. Even for Vulcans, I think. I mean, I think Vulcans look at it as a sense of discipline in a way.
Right. Yeah.
So, what would happen to this person psychologically? They obviously would go crazy in some way, or I guess, maybe we're describing sociopaths right now, where they have no emotion. Maybe we see these every day. But I don't know. It seems like that would be something that a Vulcan would do, especially with an advanced culture where they have the medical technology to do so.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be a really cool story. I'm trying to, it would just be like Vulcans are randomly being abducted like right before their Ponfar. Because I feel like that would be the only time to really test whether or not it's working.
Well, would they have it? Would they have Ponfar?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So this scientist, this Vulcan, is discredited and cast out and whatever, and then years later, they've realized that people who, or not even realized, it's just that people who are coming up to their Ponfar are going missing, and and then just through whatever they discover that it's this scientist who is taking these Vulcans who are about to have this emotional explosion and using his experiments to extract their emotion, remove their emotions, and see whether or not they still have Ponfar. And it could be that the buildup and the anguish that to have that buildup and then suddenly to have no release is actually driving the Vulcans emotionlessly mad,
mm-hmm.
which would be really difficult to portray.
He's have a guy standing there emotionless. He's like, what's wrong with him? He's having a psychotic episode.
Right. I mean,
it would be difficult to do. By removing all of these emotions, you remove some sort of other part, some sort of catharsis that goes away in the body. And so they just drives them, like they have to commit suicide or they have to go kill people, or, they've, in a sense, made themselves more emotional and more impulsive by removing those things that they thought would help with them.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting too because, kind of the same thing with Data, like when he's curious about things, like curiosity is an emotion. And, when Vulcans want something, that is an emotion. So there is some there, I don't want to say like area of gray, but there's some clarification between the emotions that are being felt. Like desire is clearly there and curiosity is clearly there, but happiness and sadness and anger and, well, I was going to say annoyance, but that's not one because clearly they're annoying.
Yeah. Well, I guess it would be interesting because he would have to set alarms on when to eat and set alarms on when to sleep, I guess. And because I think that our emotions inform all of those things just by use of hormones, I guess. So I don't know. It would be interesting to flesh that out in a storyline just to make it interesting. Right. Like what kind of odd things does this person now have to do? And maybe he'd have somebody who was helping him navigate kind of the way not Insurrection. What was the last Next Gen movie? Nemesis.
Nemesis, yeah.
Picard, the young Picard, whatever his name was, he had a disease of some kind, and he had his Shinzon.
Bane.
Which totally messes me up whenever the Prime Minister of Japan is in the news. I'm like, Shinzon's back. And he's the leader of Japan for some reason. Is there anything else in this episode? I guess there's one thing that happens that I hate. Another pet peeve.
Okay.
In this type of genre where it's kind of horror, psychological horror type of thing, where inevitably the main character, hears something that is abnormal and so has to go investigate. And in it, the investigate has to be the character slowly creeping around corners and calling out, a name or something, and then calling out again how not funny this is. And it's usually a really extended scene where they're quote unquote trying to build tension, but in reality it's just boring. And I'm waiting. I want to fast forward until the part where we actually get to see what's happening. Right? Because it's so like hello.
Well,
it just, God damn it! Like, come up with something better than that. Does you have to creep around the ship for 2.5 minutes, where ultimately somebody jumps? It's the dog.
So I'm totally fine with you saying like it's boring and you just want to fast forward through it. But that's absolutely what happens. Having two little girls, if one of them is hiding in the dark room, the other one will stand outside it and say hello, and then be like, Susie. Susie, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So it absolutely is what happens. But I can totally agree with you saying that it's boring to watch.
Well, just because I've seen it before.
Right.
It's been used forever.
Yeah.
And I'm just ready for a new way to create tension.
Well, so, just speaking of a new way of creating tension, have you seen The Ring?
Is that the VHS one where if you don't mail a VHS?
No, yeah. Yes, it is.
Yes, I only saw it once in the theaters. I remember it being creepy.
So one of the things that they do in the very first in the first scenes is there's somebody who hears a noise up in the attic, and they go up into the attic, and we see the girl before the hunter does. So the tension is now, oh yeah, no, there's definitely something there, and now we're just waiting for the person to see it. Right. And it was so well done. Like it was like the most nail biting moment in recent film that I can remember.
And is that the one where they have the really creepy kind of guttural sound?
Yes.
that is sort of indicated. Yeah. That they did a good job with that. Yeah. And I felt like that's something that only occasionally happens where there is an audio or an oral indicator of the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say, in the most famous version of that is the Jaws theme.
Right.
Musically, they do that. I think more so now it's more of a sound effect, but I feel like that's a great way to do that. Like we're very susceptible, more so orally than visually, to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
But yeah, I think he does that a couple of times. Phlox does it a couple of times in this. I'm just like,
Well, yeah, and at first it's just to anybody, and then later it's to Paul. Yeah, the creaking noise. That bothered me because it was the creaking noise of submarines under pressure, and
Mm.
there's literally no pressure on the outside of the ship.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it should have been the banging of something and not the creaking of something, but...
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that they wanted to make a horror episode.
Right.
And they decided that they didn't want to be necessarily creative in it. They wanted to nest comfortably within the genre, and so they just used all the tropes that you use.
Yes.
And, in their defense, though, so whether there's pressure from the outside or pressure from the inside, there could be creaking either way. Does that help? Does that help you? Does this make the episode much better?
But there's not an increased level of pressure from the inside.
Yeah, that's true. So they're not descending into something or where the pressure the pressure differential is the same no matter where they are. I guess
Right. So there shouldn't be that level of creaking. Like, I mean, obviously it's Phlox hallucinating, so it can be whatever sound they want it to be. But just the fact that he was getting weirded out by creaking noises kind of threw me off. I mean, I guess if I was in a ship where there shouldn't be any creaking noises and suddenly there were, I guess I'd be weirded out too. So maybe I'm okay with it.
They kind of just stepped too far outside of their own universe for this episode. They didn't their solutions to these problems was kind of just basic. It's like, well, we scanned, there was nobody there. You must be crazy. All right, well, maybe I'm just, you're right.
Yeah, it's on me. It's on me.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I felt like there could have been a better science fiction aspect to this. Speaking of that, did you think that this was a proper science fiction? My brain just stopped working temporarily. Did you think that this was a proper Star Trek episode?
No. I don't think that there was there wasn't an ethical or moral dilemma. It wasn't like he was deliberating whether or not he should wake the officers up, and there wasn't any dilemma about what he should do through the episode. And then the sci-fi aspect of it, I mean, the induced comas, well, actually, no. You can have medically induced comas. That's the thing.
You can do that now.
I think just I would say there is a sci-fi. Like, the reason for why they were in comas was definitely a sci-fi element.
It wasn't really integral to the show. It could have been any reason that they were knocked out, though. They
had a virus and they were waiting for a cure. Yeah, no, that's true. That's fair.
I don't think it's I don't know why I'm arguing it's like, well, it's orange. Yeah, but in its defense, it's orange. Like, that's what I just said.
Right. You're like, not only is it the second one, but it's also not the first one. So it's even more not an episode.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say that the moral aspect could be that, well, I don't know, that he could have woken Trip up, and he didn't.
Right, he could have, but it was never an argument as to, like, he didn't deliberate on it. It's kind of like the I forget what episode that was, but it was oh my gosh, what episode was that? Where we were talking about, like, that could have been the moral or ethical debate, but it wasn't there. Like, he very clearly took a stance on it.
I don't remember which episode that was, where it was more of a personal, internal struggle than it was any sense of external morality that was happening. Like, that he had to work with. It wasn't as though, does the captain deserve to die in this moment?
Oh, it was LaForge. It was LaForge. It was the episode with the parasite, and he. We were saying, like, whether or not he should be getting involved with the suspect. Yes, that is an ethical or moral dilemma, but he very clearly took his position on it.
It wasn't for us to decide. He'd already made the decision.
Right. Yeah, and this is kind of the same thing. Like, the ethical or moral dilemma would have been, should he wake up Trip, but it was already decided at the beginning that he was not going to, and so there was never a question of whether or not he would.
He does. I mean, he has this conversation with an imaginary character, but he has it nonetheless, where everything is going wrong, and he's trying to engage the warp core, and T'Pol says we should wake up Trip, and he says, no, I'm not ready to do that. I don't know. I don't remember if he struggles with that for a moment. I would think that if he struggled with it, if there was like a pause, that would satisfy the criteria that he's having that dilemma of, you're right, billions of people. Because she says, am I willing to sacrifice one person for the sake of billions of people?
Right.
And so I actually don't know why billions of people were at stake in that moment. Is there something that we missed? Are they on some sort of journey that?
Yeah, they're doing something to stop the Xindi. I don't remember if it's I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure at the end of this season they actually don't make it, and the Xindi do destroy a part of the Earth.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what happens.
Okay, well that makes sense. So I guess, but so there is that moment, but I don't know if he's always holding strong to I'm not going to kill somebody just to save my own life. I can do this. I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, he says not yet. He says like I'm not ready yet, or let me do this last thing, or something like that.
I like that another explosion happens off screen. He's like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go.
Now I'm ready. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not a proper Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I mean it was a great character episode. And it was a good TV episode. This wasn't schlock by any stretch of the imagination, but it just wasn't proper Star Trek. This could have been planted in any series anywhere.
I think, I mean, if I were to just I agree, it was well made. I think that, I mean, it was well made for what it was, I think. I think they could have done better in the creativity aspect of it. I felt there were different ways to have this, because it was just sort of he goes crazy, and then at the end we find out that he was crazy, and none of this, like that's been done a million times, so I felt like there were ways to do that better. If you're going to do a bottle episode like this, where it's just one character, there are more creative things that one could do.
Yes. But
well made, nonetheless. I think it was fun to be, I guess, with Phlox for me, but obviously not enough. Not enough.
It's fun to be with Phlox for me.
It does sound like I'm beginning a sonnet, doesn't it?
Or we're about to break in a song.
Yeah. All right. So should we figure out what we're watching next?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, audience, I apologize for this being one of our shorter episodes. But I guess with a character episode where the plot was so straightforward. I mean, there wasn't even a B plot to this, was there? No, not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
I guess there's the Porthos plot where.
Right. But yeah, I mean, this episode was so straightforward. There were at most 2 actors in it at any given time. There's not really a whole lot to delve into in this episode.
Yeah, not really.
So if you're unhappy with this, please let us know. If you liked this episode and you prefer they be shorter, please let us know. If you have an episode that you would like us to review and analyze, you can become a patron member and let us know. And basically, let us know you're out there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Are we talking into a blank room? That's what we want to know. And we don't know. Because nobody will email us.
At all. Like, we've had one review on Facebook, which is great. Thank you to the listener who did that. Chet is his name. Any reviews on our podcasts, any emails sent to us at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you guys. We just want to know that you're out there. Even if you just sent an email and said, I'm here. That would be fascinating.
Yeah. Or nothing. Just send us an email. It's blank.
Send us an email completely blank. Let the mystery be on us.
Have we begged enough?
Well, yeah. I mean,
are we pathetic enough?
Well, let's make this a 40-minute episode, and let's just fill in the rest of the time with compromising
the email address
incentives. Yeah. No, but really, we absolutely enjoy doing this. We want to continue doing it. But also to the same extent, we also don't want to continue doing this to an empty room, as Paul said. So if you are out there, if you are enjoying this, please do let us know. Just so we know that there's somebody out there who's actually enjoying this along with us. So I think that's
absolutely. All right, now let's figure out what we're watching next. Voyager, Season 7, Episode 13.
Wow.
Which is Prophecy. So the pause there was because it's obviously a Klingon episode. I was thinking, well...
speaking of Klingon, this episode was directed by B'Elanna, Roxanne Dawson.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, we'll do it. Voyager finds a Klingon ship that left the Alpha Quadrant 80 years before, whose captain claims that B'Elanna's child is a Klingon savior. God, do we have to do this one? Can we just...
I'm sorry.
I can just do that. So here's what happens. So the generator, it's messing with us. Because it says 713. Season 7, Episode 13. And then the title says Repentance. But on Netflix, it says Repentance is Episode 12. And Prophecy is Episode 13. And Repentance says Voyager rescues a prison warden and a set of prisoners who are scheduled to be executed, testing the crew's members' own ethical beliefs. So, I know that doesn't sound really any better than Prophecy, but at least it sounds like it's not a Klingon episode.
Right.
I guess we can't do this, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I think we need to figure out what's going on with the generator. But in the meantime, let's watch the episode do prophecy. Yeah. But what I was saying was this episode, the one we were just talking about, Doctor's Orders. This episode was directed by Roxana Dawson.
Oh. I was going to say, why did you have that so quickly? How did you have that?
All right. So let's see what the prophets tell us. Let's go watch it.
Okay. All right.